of scooped down the stage. It's very, but it's not a classical shoebox concert hall. What's it like to play it? Is it different? I mean, I know it from the architectural perspective.
Well, it's a great hall. It has got a beautiful sound, very sort of luminous, transparent sound, also powerful. But it's kind of striking when you work in the hall is the lack of symmetry, because most of the concert halls are sort of identical, the two halves are identical, and then you know, as a conductor, you know where your nose should be pointing, i.e. towards between the first two and the first two, that's the sort of way we stand, so one eye is. And in Berlin, it's somehow square.
Just slightly, it's an illusion in a way, because it's just slightly.
Yeah, it's not dramatically so, but enough that it kind of throws you over. But the basic narrative of that hall is kind of new in the history of concert halls, which is about creating intimacy despite the volume. And in Berlin, when you perform on stage in Berlin, you really feel that nobody's very far away. And a large percentage of the audience is actually in front of you, which I must say at first is a little distracting sometimes, and then you get used to it. It becomes a great pleasure actually, because you realize that you are in the same space with all these people, and you're playing music for them, so it becomes more personal and sort of social to it. And I think Salonen was the first one who figured this out. Most likely.
It's a big. Well, you went to Berlin. I mean, Berlin was a kind of model for Disney Hall, right? At the same time, the strange thing about Disney Hall, it's a kind of a hybrid in a way, because it's a kind of a shoebox and a kind of vineyard kind of layout. It's more focused, it's more compact. I think part of the idea was to make it even more intimate, right?
Yes.
It's also slightly smaller, I think, than Berlin, right?
On that trip, I visited the Concertgebouw, and I found the feeling of that, the rest of that was interesting. And so it was a hybrid between those two. I made Disney symmetrical because I thought of it as a handrail, because I thought my architecture would be disorienting and lead to normal people. And so I wanted to, I didn't want to do that. I wanted them to have something to feel comfortable with. And it wasn't a big deal
to find a way to work the two.
No, because if you go to Berlin, there is a sound problem, because the symmetry, the asymmetrical, is stage right. So, the seating goes up, and on the other side is the organ. So there is a sound disconnect. Some of the musicians
I actually never used the organ in that place. I don't know how it works there, but they do have a slight sort of I guess a human scale program, which is the size of the risers, because they're kind of too small for 3 discs and too large for 2 discs, so they have to sit rather uncomfortably. And of course, because this is the Berlin Philharmonie, the risers have been copied widely around the world, so we have, I'm sure, like 60 concert halls where the risers are not fit for humans. I'm happy to report that Disney Hall risers have been also copied now around the world, but they're perfect.
So can I tell them how that happened?
The risers. Now you were working together at this point, or you were just getting to know each other at this point when you were talking through these kinds of questions, weren't you?
I don't remember right. When I met him, he was 23 years old.
Go on.
You were 30.
One of the key issues is how the orchestra sits. It may sound really kind of banal, but my experience is that the closer together they sit, the better it sounds. But of course, there must be a sort of a natural limit as to how close you can sit, because for various reasons, but the main reason is that everybody's physically active, and you have to have enough space to do all these movements that you have to do to produce the sound, and so on. And we started talking about this, and then Frank suggested we spend a couple of days testing it and seeing the orchestra in different ways, and then kind of measuring it and marking it on the floor and measuring it, and then building mock-up risers that we can actually test in practical ways before they're being built. And this is what we did in Royce Hall back in
Right.
80s.
I'm curious about that. I was going to come to this story later on, but I mean, this was you had been at the Chandler at this point, right? So it was a very particular experience there. That, from what I understand from my conversations with Frank, it was kind of there was a messiness or a sloppiness to the way
Well,
the orchestra was organized at the Chandler.
They're all over the place. That's the way it had to be.
And you
It's
said,
quite different.
It's a human instinct, I guess, that if you have the space, you spread out. And it's a collective.